PRT, we belong to you.
Welcome to the first episode of the PRT podcast. I am your host, Robert Matheson, and I am the content creator for PRT this summer. So I am in charge for this podcast series we'll be doing this summer, but also the upcoming trailers. And what we'll be doing throughout the summer is once a week or twice or so, depending on how the schedule works, because it all depends on our busy colleagues right now. But we'll interview someone, but also talk about what we've been doing leading up to this episode. We are now past the second week of Repertory. Everyone is just on the move right now. We have all been working extremely hard. I've seen some of the set for Putnam and some flats for Making God Laugh, and those just look simply amazing. The costumes, I kid you not, for Shrek are gonna wow you. They are simply amazing. And what I love about it is there's a little of our own flair to it. It's not just we're doing Shrek and just copying the movie or the Broadway show. You can see little differences that just make a difference. We obviously have the whole look of Shrek pretty much the same because it's Shrek, but there is little things that add our own flair to it, and that's what I love about it. Publicity has been promoting PRT left and right. Lights are getting ready to make sure we're ready for when the set comes in a week or so. The first show coming up is Putnam, which will be June 11th, and I kid you not, that is probably one of the funniest shows I have seen. It's funny because of its wittiness, but there's also that very, very edgy humor. It's not edgy to where you know, it's rated R, but it's very in the middle PG-13, and that's what I like about it. And so it's something for our younger audience, but I definitely agree older audiences will like it as well, and everyone is just very happy to be here right now. We're still in the very beginning stages for most of our shows. We'll have more to report on in the upcoming weeks, but I kid you not, we have a fantastic lineup this summer. First one will be the 25th annual County Putnam Spelling Bee. As I said, hilarious. The second one's Making God Laugh. Another funny show, but also has some very heartfelt moments. Lone Star is just a riot. The Lone Star Love Potion is simply a riot. And then, of course, the big one, Shrek, which I think most people have seen. Broadway shows on Netflix if you want to get an idea of what the show will be. But as I said, there's plenty of surprises for Shrek coming up. My first guest here today is the head honcho. He is our boss, and he is our leader. He is the director of theater for PRT and SDSU. And with me I have is JD Ackman.
Good morning.
I know you're extremely busy, so I really, really do appreciate this. So, before we talk about PRT and stuff, I just want to ask you just some stuff that the audience might not know. So, where were you born?
I was born at Fort Eustis Military Hospital, Virginia. My father was a United States Marine.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Did you have any siblings at all?
Yeah, I have two sisters, younger.
That's pretty good.
One of whom is a PRT veteran for a number of years back in the 80s.
Did she recommend you doing PRT, or?
No, I had been involved with PRT long before she got involved.
So if anything, it was the other way around.
Right.
So, I'm curious, before PRT, how did you get that theater bug? What made you want to be like, you know, I could see myself doing this?
When I was in high school, I was primarily an athlete, 3 seasons, football, basketball,
Really?
track, yeah. And Mrs. Betty Gerberding at Brookings High School was constantly after me to try out for plays and musicals, and finally I relented in my senior year, and I was in the chorus of My Fair Lady, and I had an absolute blast. So when I ended up attending SDSU the following year, I was actually on the track team for a time here, and that really wasn't as much fun as I had hoped it would be, so I ended up trying out for a play my sophomore year, and the rest, they say, is history.
Do you remember what that play was?
Oh, I remember very well. It was 1776, directed by Dr. James L. Johnson, and designed by Professor Raymond Peterson, and it was a wonderful experience.
Did you get in?
I got in. I had the smallest possible role. I didn't even have a name, whereas everybody else was a representative to the Constitutional Congress. But it was a blast, and it got me involved. And just as the students are now, the older students were very welcoming and encouraging, and yeah, it was a great experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It just takes one little part, the theater bug.
Right.
Yeah.
Giddy up.
Yep. So what I want to know is so you got into 1776. Between that and your first PRT, how long of a gap was it?
I believe it was the following summer.
Following summer.
The 1776 was a fall musical that year, and I tried out for Prairie Rep the next spring, and without any real idea of what I was getting into. But I think most of the students who, over the years, and there have been close to 1,300 different students have been in the PRT company since 1970. But I think most people will tell you that their most memorable experience with Prairie Rep is their first season.
Yep, I still remember mine 2-3 years ago. First play ever SDSU has ever cast me in, Beauty and the Beast, and my first reaction was, "Are you sure?" So, were you a tech only, or did you actually get into plays for that first?
Oh,
summer?
yeah. Well, back in those days, there was no such thing as tech only.
Oh, really?
The company was considerably smaller than it is these days, and everybody had multiple duties in addition to being in the various productions. I think my first summer I was in a musical called Paint Your Wagon, and a straight comedy called George Washington Slept Here. I worked in the scene shop. I hung lights. I did scene shifts. I think I ran sound for another show. Yeah.
So really, compared to this year, where pretty much everyone is in their own work area, back in the day, it was pretty much you helped out wherever you could.
Yeah, you had your primary assignment, but again, there were so few of us that everyone did multiple tasks, and you just sort of. It hasn't changed that much, really.
Right.
Probably, lighting is more sophisticated. We have a much more extensive system. Sound is the same thing. And scenically, back then when we were performing here in Brookings and at the Prairie Village Opera House in Madison, physically you couldn't have a whole lot of stuff. So sets were simpler. And certainly, again, lights and sound were not as complex or as sophisticated. So in some ways, it didn't take as much time,
Sure.
to change one show to the next and that sort of thing.
Was the schedule the same, roughly?
Oh, not really. Well, it was roughly the same. 1970s, Prairie Rep was in true repertory, so that once all 4 shows were open, we did a strike and setup every night. So that in a single weekend, for example, a patron could see all 4 shows in 4 consecutive nights.
We usually just do like 2 at most.
Yeah, so it's
during the Brandon.
But again, it was simpler and it was easier to do that then than it is now.
And that was in Madison, right?
That was we would open our shows in Brookings and perform them in Madison, and establish, as each show opened, we would establish a rotating repertory. And I can remember one summer we had, I think, 42 or 43 strikes and setups during the season. Yeah, so it was, it was different, but it was the same. I mean, we had a lot of enthusiastic, talented young people who loved doing what they were doing. The company was like a family, and those people. In fact, virtually all of those people from my first summer are still my friends.
Oh wow, that's
I still stay in contact with most of them. Those who are still with us.
Sure.
Sadly, we've lost a few.
And that's kind of how I view it as well. Most 90% of my friends, with the exceptions of maybe a handful or so, most of them I made here in the department, and I can see myself talking way past graduation and whatnot. So that's one thing I like about PRT is there is that family vibe. Like we do trust each other. So after that first summer, You were still a student, right?
Right, yeah, undergraduate.
So what made you want to go from, okay, I understand doing this as the summer, kind of like an internship, to now I'm doing this as a career?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I think I did the summers of I think I did it 3 years, maybe 4 years consecutively, 76, 77, and 78.
Did you take a break at all, or?
Not really. Actually, I did a year of graduate school here, and ultimately ended up in an MFA program at the University of Montana beginning in 1981. So for a number of years I was away from Prairie Rep.
Okay.
Circumstances, whatnot, brought me back to town, and in the mid-1980s, Dr. Jim Johnson procured my services as a guest artist for a couple of seasons, so I was doing 2 or 3 roles a summer then, and ultimately ended up on the faculty here at SDSU, and well, here I am. I'm the managing director of Prairie Rep now.
And we're glad we have you, JP.
Well,
now fast forward, how many years is this for you?
I think this is my 32nd or 33rd season with the company in some capacity.
And what do you typically do? Today, if I had not interrupted you, what would you be doing during the 12 hours we're here?
Well, today we have 3 work sessions a day at this point in our company work. And today I have 2 of the sessions are rehearsals for the production I'm directing, the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. So we're staging that right now and preparing to open in a couple of weeks with a wonderful cast. Other than that, I have some administrative duties. I provide some oversight for our publicity and promotion folks who are very, very good. They don't necessarily need me looking over their shoulder. But some of the management aspects, ensuring that that our company members are going to get their scholarship money and all that stuff, and negotiating some different things. Right now we're putting together the program, so I'm trying to make sure that our generous donors are all being recognized in the program, and proofing the copy for the program, which has to go to print next week because we open the following week. And so every 15 minutes I'm doing something different, but it's a labor of love.
And before we get to Putnam, which, by the way, seen the first 5 pages yesterday?
Yeah, it's very, very funny.
Before we get to that, though, and I know there are a lot of it's a budget thing, but how do shows typically get picked? So for you, like, what made you want to be like, I want to direct that show?
It's sort of a combination of what the staff directors would like to do, what will appeal to our summer audiences, and what's practical in terms of set construction and what can we actually do and do well. So we generally, in fact, we're already beginning our conversations about the summer of 2015 and what we want to do. We try to pick a season that offers variety, that has a broader appeal. We almost always do 2 musicals and 2 non-musicals, which hasn't always been the case. Sometimes we do something a little bit different, but Putnam was certainly one that has been on our list, and we all have our personal lists. And boy, I'd like to do this one. But again, it's a combination of factors that we decide upon together, and it's sort of like legislation and sausages. You don't want to be there when those decisions are being made. No, we get along really well, but we all, as a staff, we're all on the same page, so to speak, about what our goals are. Prairie Rep's mission is to provide intensive training for students in the company and to provide the best entertainment we can. Absolutely. So all of that factors into our decision making.
Prior to directing this show, have you seen Putnam before?
No, in fact, I have never seen a production of it, which I prefer. Yeah, sometimes it's unavoidable. I mean, if you're directing The Music Man, you can't have reached my age and never seen The Music Man. But in this particular case, for me, it's a little more fun because I'm doing my own interpretation.
Yeah.
And so
you have nothing to compare it to.
Right, unlike Billy Wilburn, who's directing Shrek. I mean, it's a wildly popular animated film and a wildly popular stage show. And so no matter what he does, he's sort of, I wouldn't say locked in, but he's certainly going to be influenced by
I'd be very surprised if he
productions.
never saw the movie.
Yeah, no, that's, you really can't not have seen it, particularly if you have children.
So if you could give a synopsis of Putnam. I know we have our PRT booklets and whatnot. If you saw a friend you haven't seen in a while and be like, oh, what show are you directing? Oh, I'm directing this show. What's it about? What would you say to him or her?
Well, first of all, it's not. It doesn't fit the mold of the traditional musical that most people think of. In other words, I mean, even Shrek is boy meets girl, boy loses girl.
Yeah.
It's about this half dozen finalists at their county spelling bee, and each of the finalists in their young adolescent people, certainly played by adults, but each one of them has some peculiarity, something that's a little strange about them. And of course, they're all exceptionally bright kids. So in a way, it's sort of the journey. It's about the journey that each of them takes through the contest. And there's the sort of the mistress of ceremonies, Rona Lisa Peretti, who is a former winner who's been running this contest for, I don't know, 18 years or something. So the creators of this show really, I don't think, in fact, I'm sure they weren't after the traditional musical, but the music is fantastic. Our cast is doing a wonderful job with it. So it's really about coming to terms with yourself. I think each of the spellers realizes that not everybody's going to win. That they are, I mean, this sounds awfully erudite, but they each have their own positive attributes, whether they win or not. And they sort of develop these relationships that are fluid throughout the telling of the story. But as I said, even though it's not a traditional style musical, it's really satisfying, and it's, as you said, it's really funny.
Oh yeah,
There's some great stuff in it.
Again, I mean, you only covered, you said 5 pages roughly, and oh my gosh, it's the music and the best part is I mean, I never have to worry about it with our shows, but you can tell the cast is having a blast with this.
Oh yeah, and one of the unique things about the show, of course, is audience members become part of the spelling bee, and so we have 3 or 4 audience volunteers who literally are on stage and taking part. So that requires a lot of improvisational skills on the part of the performers because we don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, some of them get really hard words and some of them get really easy words.
And of course, it's much different. Like, oh, can you do this? Oh, yeah, absolutely. And once you're on stage, it's anyone's game.
Yeah, well, and so the entire cast has to be of great assistance to the audience volunteers. But it's not intimidating. No one's made a fool of or anything, and it's all in good fun.
It's also really, I thought it was a great job of casting. I think everyone is, as I said, everyone's having a blast. But also, parts that are ad-libbed, is that your choice or is it in the script?
Some of the ad-lib stuff is going to be situational and the actor has to invent it on the spot, but there is a pretty fair amount of scripted things that will happen or that will be said or words that need to be spelled by the audience, and some of them are incredibly obscure and some of them are very simple, like cow, spell cow, and it's designed to eliminate, I mean, by intermission, all of the audience volunteers have sat back down in the audience so we kind of knock on wood that we don't get someone who knows how to spell every word in the dictionary because we'll be there all night. But there are accommodations in the structure of the script for that. So,
and it's pretty appropriate, but this is more of a teenage show. Rather than
it's a lot about adolescents and their issues. So in our publicity and promotion materials, we're suggesting that the show is probably not suitable for preteens.
Yeah.
Because some of the spelling contestants are a bit
unorthodox.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they have some things they talk or sing about that would either go over the head of a 9-year-old or perhaps not be appropriate.
And I'm really excited to see it. So what are the dates for it?
Putnam County Spelling Bee opens in Brookings at Donor Auditorium on June 11th and runs through Sunday the 15th of June. And then when we pack up the whole Prairie rep operation and move everything to Brandon, Spelling Bee will run again from July 24th through the 27th.
All right. And before I let you go, JD, and again, I know you're extremely busy, so I deeply appreciate this. And I figured for the first podcast, if I had to pick the first guest, it has to be the one who's in charge of all of us. And I just want to say that it was thanks to JD that I'm currently in this department. I don't know if you remember, but 4 years ago, I still remember taking that intro to acting class with you when I was that shy little kid. I mean, I'm still that shy little kid.
Well, not so little anymore.
But I still remember, I mean, I did some theater back then, but I didn't think I was going to ever do that. And you just basically said, just show up, have a good time. And now 4 years later, I'm still doing this. So I owe a lot of thanks to you, JD.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I think our entire staff, our entire faculty is, for me personally, in the leadership role or roles that I currently have, the most important thing, or my personal value, you might say, is that people come first.
Yeah.
And I think my colleagues share that, and our students and people who join us for the summer quickly find out that we care a great deal about the people. I mean, we want to do the best productions we can and make sure that people learn things and all of that. But what it comes right down to is taking good care of people, whether it's our colleagues or the students involved or our patrons.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a real hallmark of our program, both during the academic year and during Prairie Rep.
Absolutely. Last question before I let you go. If budgets, rights were non-issue, staging, none of that. Broadway, let's just say Broadway. If PRT was for some odd reason in Broadway.
If we were given Broadway money.
Yes,
right?
if we were given Broadway money. If you could either see or direct any show, it could be a show you've already done, it could be a show you've never done, what would it be? Again, you don't have to worry about we can't do this because of this. If money was no object and space was no object, which one? Or a handful?
Oh man, that's tough. I honestly, I mentioned earlier, we all have a handful of show we'd like to do, or maybe something we'd like to another crack at. We didn't do so well the first time around. It's really hard. I don't know that I can list anything. We're fortunate that we've been operating for a number of years. Certainly, everybody in the country recently has done, both professional and amateur, has done a production of Les Mis, and I absolutely love the music to that. But I don't think right now is the time to think about doing that one. I don't know. Probably, I would, if money were no object, I think it would be awfully fun to get some noted and recognizable actors to be part of our company so that our students have that experience of working with professionals, perhaps professional choreographers, directors. We have had some guest artists over the years. But I think we would probably, or I would want to go to the students and to our patrons and say, and which we frequently do with our patrons, what do you want to see? If you could have a 4-show season, your dream season, what would it be? And I'll bet that it wouldn't take long for us to solidify a season of stuff that people couldn't live without. So that's my answer. I know that's evasive, but that's kind of how I'm rolling today.
Oh, and sorry, one last follow-up. Are you happy to be back in the directing chair?
Yeah. Last summer, the way the scheduling and assigning of roles and things went, I reprised a role that I played several times before, and because of that, and because we had a guest artist in for the Church Basement Ladies show we did, I chose not to direct so I performed instead. But yeah, it's I enjoy directing very much, and we're having a blast putting Putnam County together.
Well, JD, thank you so much. I cannot stress how much I owe to you and this whole department. So I will leave you alone now.
Very good. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed chatting with you.
All right. That concludes our episode today. Join us next week and I promise you we'll have more to report on. And be sure to see 25th Annual County Putnam Spelling Bee, because I kid you not, it is a riot. Teenagers will relate to this, both the heartfelt moments, both the funny moments. And I also again want to thank JD for going out of his way to letting me interview him. And we'll see you again next week.
PRT, we belong to you.